All right, Jesse and Fire, welcome back to the channel. Now we're going to talk about Tony Ferguson and Michael Chandler because I thought about it. I thought about it today and I realized there are very few fights that make more sense than this one. And I'm not just talking about make more sense for the fighters, also for the UFC as a business and for the fans. I'll tell you exactly why. So stick around. But before I get into that, let me just say this. I have a different background. I would actually like if you guys would tell me in the comments if you like this better than my normal green screen. I'm being serious. Don't just say you like it better if you actually like the green screen. I'm looking for serious, actual feedback. Don't be jerks, okay? Now, speaking of not being jerks, I'm also really close to 50,000 subscribers, and thus, I decided about an hour ago that I'm gonna do an enormous giveaway. Now, you might not realize this if you're not a content creator on YouTube, but you get a list of all your new subscribers, okay? And then you get to filter over, a certain period of time. Now, I'm going to filter whoever subscribes over the last 30 days, because it's gonna take probably ballpark about 30 days for me to get to 50,000. And anyone in the last 30 days is going to be randomly entered into this giveaway, and I'm going to give something big away. Something really big. Something that people that didn't subscribe are going to find out afterwards and be like, man, I 1 in 2,000, that's not a very small, my odds are pretty good at winning that. So go ahead and join the party and you could be added in. Probably going to bring one of you guys to a UFC event. That's probably what I'm going to do. So anyway, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, join the party. Anyway, so here's the deal. So I was thinking about this Michael Chandler and Tony Ferguson fight. I saw them beefing and I was like, I was like, I'm kind of shocked I hadn't really considered this fight. I honestly can't explain it to you guys. I can't explain why I hadn't considered this fight before, but when I saw it, anything Michael Chandler, I automatically kind of like look at it and go, oh, okay, does this make sense? Because, I know him and I think he's fucking awesome. But this had just not even crossed my radar. But I thought about it and I was like, this fight makes so much sense. And it makes sense in the way that things make sense that actually end up happening, inside of the UFC, which is like, does this set up something bigger, right? Like there are a million fighters hundreds of fighters in the UFC where outcomes of their fights don't really matter very much. And then there's a handful of fighters where you need to really be thinking strategically about why this fight makes sense, doesn't make sense, what happens if this guy wins, what happens if this guy wins, how does that play into the larger things happening around here? And Tony Ferguson and Michael Chandler are not small players in this thing. They're not. Both of them are well-known guys, certainly well enough known that the outcome will matter, and you think about who they would fight next if they won, what's the downside if one of them lost, etc. Okay? So there are a bunch of things at play. Number one, when fighters hit a multi-fight skid, right, where they've lost a couple in a row, you have to look and seriously evaluate, be like, are there circumstances that led to them losing where they're not like at the tail end of their career? Like, because sometimes they're towards the tail end of their career, and that's a very different thing to manage a fighter like that than it is to manage someone who might have lost 2 fights, but they're still in the prime of their career and they can still make a big run. Now, I would imagine that at first glance, people would say, well, Tony is probably at the tail end of his career and Michael Chandler is kind of right in the center because he just fought Charles Oliveira, who is the undisputed champion, and he won a 10-8 round in the first round. That was less than a year ago. That was like really recently. Like Michael Chandler was almost the champion at lightweight very recently, and then he had an absolute bang-out war with Justin Gaethje. So those are his 2 losses, right? So obviously you're not going to look at him and go, oh, well, we better squeeze the last bit of his career out of him in his next fight. That's not where he's at all. But at the same time, he did technically, not technically he did. He lost 2 in a row. So, you want to get him a fight that, sets him up to be in a good position, assuming that he wins. Tony Ferguson has lost 3 in a row. Now, he lost them to absolute killers, right? He lost to Justin Gaethje, right? Just talked about him. He lost to Oliveira. Just talked about him. And then he lost to Dariush, who we don't really know where he's at yet, but people seem to think that he might be the best lightweight in the world. So Tony lost 3 in a row, but he lost to absolute killers. But he lost in devastating fashion to Justin Gaethje. He got completely dominated by the other 2 guys. And it does feel like maybe, he is in that position where you're like, maybe we should try to squeeze the last bit out of him. But he's a big enough star that if he did beat someone like Michael Chandler, you could set him up with another big fight. So that's the thing. That's why this makes so much sense, because if Chandler wins, that's great, right? Sets the UFC up with their, potential golden boy who can sell fights, and you can set up another really big fight directly after. And if Tony Ferguson does figure out a way to win, that sets him up for a big fight, right? Like, Tony Ferguson is still a big star, and if he can show he can still bang, so you've got win-win on both sides. And just, if you're being totally honest, if you're in the front office and you're the UFC and you're matchmaking, Tony Ferguson is someone that you are placing surgically right now, because you think he really is a star that still has a little bit of credibility, and you want to squeeze the last bit out of his career, right? And so you want to be very, very, surgical with where you place him. That's why I've always thought that he was going to end up fighting Conor McGregor. But here's the thing. If you do Ferguson versus Chandler and you do it soon, the winner of that fight fights Conor McGregor. That's why it makes so much sense, is you have those two guys fight and the winner fights Conor. Okay? And then if Conor wins, title shot. And honestly, if one of the, you'd have a real tough time selling Tony Ferguson beating him and then getting a title shot. Maybe. But certainly, who knows, dude, actually. If Ferguson beat Chandler and then beat Conor, you might be able to set him up for a title shot, maybe. But if Chandler beats Ferguson and then beats Conor, you certainly could set him up for a title shot for sure. And yeah, that's what it is. That is the bracket that I would make. Now, again, this is all assuming that Conor is coming back to 155, which is not for sure. But if he is coming back to 55, that's what you do. You bracket Ferguson, you bracket Chandler, you have the winner fight Conor. Boom, bing, bang, boom, boom. That's what you do, right? Now, let's say Conor's not coming back to 55, then it depends. You have Chandler. It's really unfortunate that Chandler lost to Gaethje and Oliveira, Now, the Oliveira fight, he lost by knockout, but man, he looked so good, dude. And he put it on Oliveira, dude. There's no one else that's put him on it. Like, Oliveira hasn't been in trouble like that on this run, not like that. So, but there are a lot of fights out there for Chandler. You could go Tony versus Chandler, and the winner fights the loser of Dariush or Makhachev. As a matter of fact, that's exactly what you do. If Conor's out, you go Chandler versus Ferguson. Winner fights loser over there. Loser is in a tough spot, I like Chandler in that fight, by the way. I spoke to Chandler about it earlier today, and I said to him, I was like, look, I don't love Tony's health prospects if you win that fight, but you didn't sign up to be his doctor, did you? So, but anyway, that's what I got. So, I love you guys so much it hurts. Remember, tell me if you like this background, because this actually looks pretty fucking good. I've got a different lighting thing going on, and I got the different background. I think it looks pretty good. But yeah, and then subscribe to the channel. You can be in the, I don't know if it's going to be tickets. It's going to be something big, though. Like, it's going to be something big. Something that you will definitely want to win. So if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe, get in there. Anyway, love you guys.